Hello, this is chapter 1 of biology. The chapter is called The Science of Life, which is what we'll be looking at first. In section 1.1, we'll discuss the characteristics of life. There are 7 different characteristics of life, and in order to be considered a living organism, the organism must possess all 7 of these characteristics. We will look in more detail in the upcoming slides on organization and cells, response to stimuli, homeostasis, metabolism, growth and development, reproduction, and finally change through time. With organization, basically, living things all have this basic structure to them. Begins with cells. The cell is considered the basic unit of life. Those cells then make up tissues when they work together to perform a similar function. So for instance, a muscle cell grouped together could be forming a muscle tissue. Tissues also can work together to carry out specialized jobs, and when they do that, they make up organs. Within organs, you can also have them work together to make up an organ system. So for instance, the respiratory system is made up of various organs that all work together to help support the overall organism. So cells make up tissues, tissues make up organs, organs make up organ systems, and the organ systems make up the entire organism. Here's just another example of that. These are some of the types of tissues that go into making up the stomach organ, and the organ of the stomach is part of the digestive system. There are a couple different types of organisms. They can be either unicellular, which means that they're made up of one cell, for instance bacteria. And then you can also have organisms such as ourselves, which are considered to be multicellular, which just means that we're made up of many cells. Cells also have the ability to become specialized at various tasks. This process is called cell differentiation. This is just kind of an example. Cell specialization or differentiation means that these certain cells can get really good at one function but not have to worry about performing all functions of life. So they essentially will divide up different tasks for us to help make our bodies work more efficiently. This is just a little example of how sometimes it's hard to be really good at everything, but by picking specific jobs, cells can become very good at what they do. So for instance, nerve cells are good at transmitting information throughout our body, or muscle cells or red blood cells or skin cells. They all have their own features that help to make them unique and help an organism to survive. The second characteristic of life is the response to stimuli. So a stimulus is just some sort of change to the environment. It could be either internal or external. And basically, if an organism can react to it, then that is one of these characteristics of life. So for instance, dilating pupils. By dilating pupils, you can adjust the amount of light that your eye is getting. So that would be a reaction to how much light is available in the room that you're in. Homeostasis is another characteristic of life, and this means stable internal conditions. All living things want to maintain stable internal conditions. So some examples could be temperature, water intake, food intake, pH levels. With temperature, if you just think about humans, basically it's like we have our own built-in thermostat. If we get too hot, we'll sweat, and as the sweat evaporates off our skin, that will help to cool us down. If we get too cold, we're going to shiver, and that's going to help to speed up our metabolism and heat us back up. So both of those processes help to maintain our core body temperature at a level that will allow us to keep living comfortably. Metabolism is another characteristic of life. And basically, metabolism is the sum of all the chemical reactions that are going on inside our bodies. They can happen in a couple different ways. Photosynthesis is the process of converting light energy into chemical energy. So, plants will get energy for themselves from the sunlight, whereas organisms like humans, we will get our energy from the food that we digest. A process that goes with photosynthesis is called cellular respiration, which is where we can convert organic compounds into usable energy, which is called ATP. And we'll discuss that a little bit more later in the semester. But anytime you see ATP, that means that that is a form of energy that we can use. Growth and development is another characteristic of life. It is made up of cell division and simply growth. So cell division and enlargement. Cell division happens through forming two cells from an existing cell, and then those cells also become larger as well. And the development process is where an organism basically grows larger. So that is a process of repeated cell divisions and that differentiation or specialization process. Reproduction is another characteristic of life. Some key ingredients for reproduction are DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, which is just a large molecule of hereditary information. On that DNA, there are going to be many genes. A gene contains instructions for the development of a single trait. And there's a couple different types of reproduction. Sexual reproduction, which is where two organisms make one organism, and asexual reproduction, which is where one organism is able to grow and split into two new organisms. And finally, the last characteristic is change through time, or evolution. And basically, this is just a process explaining how organisms don't really become stagnant over time. They have the ability to adapt to their environment, and this happens through a process called natural selection.